Welcome to Sweden, the home of the Aurora Borealis, better known as the Northern Lights. This amazing phenomenon has been transfixing the snow dwellers of the northern latitudes for all time. We'll learn a great deal about this amazing phenomenon right after this. Hello, hi, and welcome to episode 3 of KPO's European Astronomy Tour. This week we're in Smogen, Sweden, actually on Hallo Island, just off of Smogen. Smogen is situated at 58 degrees north latitude and lies on the northern edge of the Swedish west coast. Being so close to the Arctic Circle, in the winter it's not all uncommon to see the Aurora Borealis, better known as the Northern Lights. Now, of course, we're visiting Sweden in the middle of July, so we most likely will not be experiencing this phenomenon ourselves. Aside from it not being the season for it due to the tilt of the Earth, the sky really never gets fully dark because the sun only dips about 10 degrees below the horizon. That in itself is a very interesting discussion, and we'll be diving into that topic next week when we visit the land of the midnight sun. So although we won't be seeing aurora, we can certainly discuss the science and history of the amazing natural phenomenon. The aurora has captivated sky-gazing viewers for as long as humans have walked the Earth. So what actually causes the aurora? The northern lights blaze across the Arctic skies in Sweden when charged particles discharged by the sun reaches Earth's atmosphere. They're carried here on the solar wind and then collide with gaseous particles in our atmosphere. During periods of high activity, a single aurora storm can produce 1 trillion watts of electricity with a current of 1 million amps. For comparison, a lightning strike ranges in the 10 billion watts and 200,000 amps range, so the aurora are really powerful. The different gases in the atmosphere produce different colors, usually pale light greens and pinks. Most often, the Arctic aurora appears as a faint green or light rose color. In periods of extreme activity, they can change to yellow or crimson. Solar activity is tied to the number of sunspots that are formed. The sun goes through a rotating cycle approximately every 11 years when sunspot activity increases. Aurora Borealis season in northern polar latitudes runs from August through April, which is when the sky gets fully dark, unlike what we have right here. During the summer months of May, June, and July, it's just too bright to see them in the far northland. Auroras can still be spotted south of about 50 degrees latitude during the summer. Statistically, the equinox months of September and March are best for aurora activity. The winter months of October through February are also good, as there's definitely no shortage of darkness. The peak hours for aurora watching are between 11 p.m. and 2 a.m. So there's many options for booking cottages for stays in Lapland, which is actually northern Sweden, Norway, and Finland, designed for the aurora chaser. In these quaint little outposts in the northern Scandinavian tundra, there's fireplaces and saunas, and the ability to leave your cold weather gear and boots right by the door to be able to get outside at a moment's notice. This is very useful when an auroral display erupts. Getting to this part of the world in winter is somewhat challenging, as it requires an international flight into a major airport and then a small connecting flight to get you to your more northern destination. An interesting site for aurora predictions is aurora-service.eu, which has interesting gauges for various geomagnetic measurements such as aurora level, an aurora forecast with daily and weekly descriptions, and solar wind gauges. This is a fairly technical site, but it's a great resource for learning the technical details of chasing aurora. So next we're going to learn about the different types of aurora, and we'll talk about it right after this. So what types of aurora can you see? The aurora that you can view early in the evening is shaped as an arc and stretches all across the sky in an east-west direction. These auroral arcs have indistinct edges and are usually green in color. Sometimes arcs can start to take on motion and begin to look like pieces of drapery. They can also appear as distinct rays that are aligned with the direction of the Earth's magnetic field. The lengths of an aurora arc can be as large as 600 miles or even more. If you view an aurora right at the zenith, the rays look like they're coming from a single point and radiate in all directions. This is known as a coronal aurora. If you're north or south of the actual radiation point, the same aurora will appear as an arc. During the most active periods of auroras, which are known as auroral storms, the whole sky may be filled with incredible colors. The shapes and colors can change from one second to the next. The most intense phase of an aurora normally lasts only about for 10 minutes. As the storm starts to fade and the energy begins to dissipate, you can often see a different type of aurora known as pulsating auroras. The sky will be filled with pale light spots that are switched on and off independently of each other and at different speed. The spots are lit for a few seconds. This type of aurora is common after midnight. For very northerly amateur astrophotographers, I wonder if the aurora is considered a nuisance like the moon, as they both flood the sky with light and would fog any astrophotos that the frozen photographer was attempting to capture. If it were me, I think it would take a long while for this spectacle to become a nuisance. So let's review what we've learned about this amazing northern phenomenon. Initially, we said that aurorae are created when charged particles discharged by the sun reach Earth's atmosphere, carried here by the solar wind from the sun. Then we learned that the Aurora Borealis season in northern polar latitudes runs from August through April, essentially the period of long, cold winter nights. We mentioned the types of lodging and quaint cabins that can be booked for your winter aurora watching in Sweden, Norway, Finland, and Iceland. And then we talked about the different types of aurora: auroral arcs, Drape aurora, coronal aurora, and pulsating aurora. Well, that's a wrap on this episode of the European Astronomy Tour. You can see the episode notes at kpobservatory.org/EAT3, where you can find our itinerary and publication schedule for the rest of the trip. Throughout this tour, I'll be checking the site and YouTube for any comments or questions that you may have, so feel free to leave anything that you wanted to ask. So as I mentioned earlier, next week on KPO's European Astronomy Tour, we're going to travel to the land of the midnight sun in the country of Norway. When we're there, we'll experience for ourselves the midnight sun effect high over the fjords surrounding Flam, Norway. Until then, happy travels in clear skies, and we'll see you next time on KPO's European Astronomy Tour. I'll leave you with a clip of a drone flight past the lighthouse on this beautiful little island of Hallo, Sweden.